Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the third ever episode of the Liberty Hangout podcast. My name is Justin. I'm the founder of libertyhangout.org, and I'm privileged to be joined tonight by Danilo Cuellar, who is the founder of peacefulanarchism.com and is the owner of the Peaceful Anarchism Facebook page. I can be found on Twitter at @panarchism, and you can subscribe to his YouTube channel, Peaceful Anarchism. You can find his podcast on the Voluntary Virtues Network, and he is also a contributor for Turncoat Resource, Living in Modern Times, Emancipated Human, Black Markets Are Beautiful, Liberate RVA, Agoristball, Gadsden Ball, Seeds of Liberty Podcast, Initiation of Peace, and the Conscious Resistance Network. Danilo, how are you doing, my friend? It's a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. We had a wonderful conversation last time, and delighted to contribute to your channel.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your philosophy, how you came to be a voluntarist, what your past philosophical ideologies are, and what really appealed to you.
Yeah, so I mean, in government school, I wasn't the type of kid that wanted to excel and memorize and go into honors and AP, and I was really content to be in the regular classes and pursue stuff outside of school. So philosophy and astronomy and physics and chess and piano, those kind of things were my interests. So I was always like, I guess you can say, anti-authority. I would write, pretty philosophically, and my English teachers would hate it. So I'd get consistently low grades. So yeah. So and I found out with one of my teachers actually in 12th grade, his bioethics teacher, that when I really tried to write really well, she would give me consistently like 70s and 60s, right? And finally she talked to me. She was like, you know what, you gotta change the way you write. And so basically I'm like, all right. I started writing like I was basically a fifth grader, right? Really like mocking her. Guess what? She gave me 90s and 100s. So I'm like, this institution cannot be for education. If that's what all it takes, it's really illustrative. And and then
right from a young age.
Yeah, I really understood how it's just it's stifling, it's suffocating, it destroys the creative spirit in children. And I think it was Albert Einstein. He said that it's a miracle if creativity survives public education, right?
Okay.
So true. And the kids who continue to be imaginative and creative afterwards are the lucky ones, right? They're the ones that really stubbornly refuse to bow down to the authority figures in the school. And so and I kept pursuing stuff. I was interested in alternative medicine, and I learned about holistic nutrition, acupuncture, Chinese herbs, and I started learning about Monsanto and big pharma and that kind of the pharmaceutical industrial complex, all that kind of stuff. And so initially I was of the mindset that we need to ban GMOs, right? I was like against GMOs because of all of my holistic background, so we need to ban GMOs, right? And I followed stuff like this one page called Farm Wars and different things like that. And then I started learning about I think it was my first book was Creature from Jekyll Island, and then I started listening to more Jeff Borwick, Dollar Vigilante, and then I started realizing, like, wait a minute, hold on, if the government is coercive and violent and is a monopoly, how can giving it more power to control an evil corporation bring about a peaceful solution, right? So for example, GMOs, I mean, it's still, I guess, people debating whether it's good or bad, but regardless, like, people ask me, do you think, what's your opinion on GMOs as an anarchist, as a voluntarist? And it's basically the same as anything that we consider immoral. Like, it's not a victimless crime for a company to make GMOs, right? But if a company in a free market was to make a product and it would hurt their consumers, right? Why would a company do that? Because they would just be hurting their customer base, right? That wouldn't make sense. You're killing your profits, right? So, literally. So the only way something like that could survive and could proliferate is through government subsidies, government favoritism, through erecting barriers to entry for small businesses, through protectionism, things like that. So basically through corporate fascism. That's the only way something like that. Because in the free market, I pretty much have no doubts anymore that, I'm not saying that Walmart's evil. I'm not saying that any of these things are evil, but I'm saying that they would not have been
Grown
so
so
large.
Yeah.
They would not have grown so large. It's basically impossible without government help. So, so now that's my thing, is that if you don't like something, then don't patronize it, right? Don't buy their products, boycott, right? Ostracize. We don't achieve anything by giving a violent monopoly more power. That's the way you destroy.
And I think that's the dilemma we're really facing today. I know you and I talk about him a lot, Bernie Sanders, because all these liberals and socialists, they oppose the same things we do. They are against the police state. They are against these big corporate subsidies.
Yeah.
Their solution is to somehow throw more money at the entity that created these problems. What would you say to someone who suggests that as a solution?
So it reminds me of one of my favorite memes of Bernie Sanders I saw recently. It's like, Bernie Sanders says, greed, guns, and prison are evil, right? they're what's wrong with society, right?
Now give me 90% of your wealth. Men with guns to throw your
right. There's so much hypocrisy with socialist mentality. Yeah. It's just amazing. It's like a completely emotional appeal, socialism. It really is like, you really have to stop thinking in order to be a socialist. Basically, you just have to think with your heart. That's it. You're not thinking with economics or human action. You're not thinking about, what are people incentivized to do. You're just thinking it would be nice if everybody had $15 minimum. How could you say no to that? Don't you want people to get paid more? Shouldn't we force companies to pay people more? Right? What would you say? People like that, they're like, how could you be against that?
Well, the one thing I say, I know that I learned this from Peter Schiff, and he said that you have to very carefully, when engaging in the minimum wage argument, you need to engage in it very, very carefully. He was saying how a lot of conservatives and libertarians often say how you're hurting the business. But you know what? Then you're going to be looked at as pro-business, and the left already looks at business as evil. So if you're going to be defending business, that's not going to help the argument. So the way Peter Schiff said is that when you're going to be talking about minimum wage, talk about how it hurts the worker. So now, when the state steps in and says you are now mandated to pay this $15 minimum wage, the left in turn thinks that, oh, this is helping the worker. He's getting more money. But in reality, what's it actually doing? In turn, it's telling you as the employee, well, now you have to prove to your employer that you're worth $15 an hour, or you're going to be fired. So it hurts you. You need to be able to prove to the market that you are now more valuable, and that's a very damaging thing that I think a lot of the left just fails to understand.
Yeah. I tell people it's. I think Walter Block said it's not an employment law. It's an unemployment law. Because
Murray Rothbard said it's compulsory unemployment because the law therefore states that all these free and voluntary interactions. So if someone's willing to hire me for $7 an hour and I'm willing to volunteer my labor for $7 an hour, the state is stepping in and saying, pay him $15 an hour or he remains unemployed.
You just remind me of something. I got into a conversation with some of my actual homeschooling mothers, because I get together a lot of homeschooling mothers to go out and go to places and parks and playgrounds and museums, and a couple of them are kind of socialist, but they understand where I'm coming from for the most part. But their problem is the word voluntary. This is kind of interesting, and I want to write an article on this because so many people have this problem. Because I always say, hey, as long as it's voluntary, because they're like, pornography, it's evil, exploits women. Well, I don't know what else was they say. I forget what else they were saying, but that was one thing. Like
I had the argument thrown at me today by my one of my professors who was saying, we were having a discussion about Uber. She was saying, "Oh, Uber is evil. They exploit their workers."
Right.
Then a student in the class raised her hand and said, "Yeah, but they're choosing to work for them. It's a voluntary interaction." And then she snapped at the student. She was like, "Oh, do they really have a choice?"
Right.
As if there aren't a million other professions for them to go into.
So the implication is, and this is actually what this woman said to me. She's like, they are being forced. I'm like, who's forcing them? Society is forcing. Culture. What? Culture is for? Are you serious? Like, and then of course they come up with like, what if in in this scenario where it's a single mother and she's getting by in 3 jobs and can't sleep, and she's living in a ghetto, and what are the opportunities for the children growing up in that environment? Aren't they kind of forced to follow in their footsteps, in the mother's footsteps, and lead a life of basically menial servitude? And but really, what people fail to realize when they do that is that you really you're not considering the people as individuals. Like, they don't have choices, right? They have to go as how they were raised and culturally. But no, people every day were making choices, right? Every single day. Like, I could say, because I went to public school for 12 years and I got a worthless diploma and it did not serve me whatsoever, I could say, now I'm forced, society has forced me to go McDonald's, and that's it, I guess. But no, I said no. Every single day I'm like, I want to learn something new. I want to improve myself. I want to get new skills, right? So every single day you can choose to be a better person, right? So when you say society has forced me, you're basically stripping the person of moral responsibility, right? You're saying this is not an individual because they were forced by society, by culture. So it's really such a baseless argument,
No, you just said that you received a 12-year diploma. Did you also attend college?
Yeah. I studied acupuncture and Chinese herbs and massage therapy.
Oh, wow.
And I got a massage. Massage was an associate's degree, and acupuncture and Chinese herbs and Eastern nutrition was my bachelor's/master's degree.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I'm in college right now. Would you I know you would you stress the importance of self-education over probably getting a college education today? What are your thoughts on that there?
Yeah, that's a good topic. I get asked that a lot. Like for example, when I go to when I try to get into conversations about volunteerism anywhere I can, as often as I can, and you don't really get a good response when you say I'm an anarchist, right? So you got to take the back door out. So like when I'm in the checkout line and talking to the cashier, I like to ask, are you in college, right? And some of them say, like, if they say no, I'm in high school. I'm like, all right, so you're planning on going to college? Yes. Next question, why? And they're like, what do you mean why? Of course, like nobody ever asked them, like, because it's just like understood. Everybody goes to college, like that's the next step, right? And I'm like, why? Tell me why it's important that you should go to college. And they kind of flounder around, and I'm like, tell me some things that you can learn, besides like hands-on activities, like some things that you can learn in college that you can't learn anywhere else, for example, on the internet for free, for either a fraction of the cost or for free entirely. And it's just so sad that colleges, I think, just like government schools, is one of those dinosaur institutions that is remnants of a distant past that the internet has just blown out of the water. It's like comparing it's like comparing a Lamborghini to a Model T car. There's just no comparison. The internet, lightning fast transmission of ideas, and you can talk to people across over an ocean, and for free, basically.
Yeah, like Adam Kokesh always says, how governments can no longer manipulate us to the extent that they have been able to get away with, because we have the tools in front of us to pick up a smartphone and video chat with an Iranian soldier and be like, hey, do you guys really want to blow up the world? No? Okay. Bye.
Right. And I think, I forgot who told me this, but they said that this one person made, he wanted to do like a test of culture. So he friend request random Middle Eastern people. And
I've had a friend that's done the same thing, actually.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't know. I forgot who told me that. Maybe it was you. I don't know. And he basically said, and they wanted to figure out, how their lives were on Facebook. Like, are they really so different? And no, actually, most of the time they're the same. They worry about the same things. They, want to give their kids a good education. They want to provide, have their kids get a good job and
absolutely
decent life. Like, I tell people, you have more in common with the average Iraqi or Iranian than you do with your own political masters here at home.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about that. And I actually, going back to the thing about college education, I just wanted to bring up this quick comment I saw on Facebook earlier that actually perfectly relates to this. And so my friend said, since the government has outlawed IQ tests, except in the military service, curiously enough, you need to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get a piece of paper that says, I'm smart. Then,
Right.
knowing what we know about economics, you realize that government forcibly suppresses interest rates, forcing banks to give loans to people in the name of equality. And massive government spending takes away your job opportunities when you get out, while simultaneously dumbing down your education with their vile egalitarian agenda. What are your thoughts about that there?
Yeah, it kind of reminds you of I remember Stefan Molyneux saying how it's like you know, if you make somebody who's horrible at basketball, let's say, and you say, you know what, we want you to be good at basketball. Let's throw you in the NBA. Like, is that going to make them a basketball player? No. So basically, it's like some things. Like we all have different. We're all born unequal, right? We all have different talents, capabilities. You know, or some were born beautiful, some were born ugly, some were born tall. You know, short. You know, so we all have different. We're unequal in that sense, and so to say that everybody would get smarter by going to college is really to assume that everybody learns the same.
Yep.
And that's just not the case. People, everybody does not learn that way, the same. So, and essentially, people, they have it in their mindset that they have to go to college. And now, the government's, ever since they got involved in the student loan industry, it's like, is it a really coincidence that the, tuitions have skyrocketed? Because I tell this to some of my cousins who are in college. I'm like, do you really consider it a coincidence that, once colleges get secured loans, basically, because, the student can't afford it, so they just, they have a pulse. Okay, you get a federal loan, you go into college. I mean, it's like I remember George Carlin would say, it's going to be like, it's like, you got a pencil? Okay, physics class, get in there. And that's how it is. And it's like if you were in any business where you knew that your funds would be secured, what would you do with your prices? Would you decrease your prices or would you raise your prices, right? If you knew that,
says raise them.
Right, of course. If you know your funds are going to be secured, there's no competition really. There's they're going to get the money anyway, and so it's like hence prices skyrocket. So
and then you have the second factor in there, in that if you're going to, when you have all these loans being doled out, you're artificially increasing the demand, and so when you have an increase in demand without a supplementary increase in supply, that too is going to raise the prices. And I think a lot of people miss out on that fact there.
Yeah, and the fact that now practically everybody has an associate's and bachelor's degree, and what does that do? What does that do to the value of those degrees? Right, it plummets, because it's you're no longer a special person. Now, what do they want? Now they want a PhD. Okay, now when everyone gets a PhD, what's going to happen? Then after that, what postdoctor? I don't know.
Then we have communist utopia.
Exactly. Free education, free college.
Now, what would you say to? Because I know the free education really rings a lot with all the college kids here, just given how astronomical prices have gotten. What would you say to someone who's going to ardently say, "Oh, don't I have a right to free education?" They're going to paint you as the bad guy. What would you say to them?
Yeah, those are interesting arguments. Don't I have a right? I have a right to food. I have a right to what else do they say? Good housing. I have a right to education, and basically, it's like if somebody had to work for that product, then no, you don't have a right to it, because if you say you have a right to something, another person's work, essentially that's slavery, right?
Correct.
And I have my mother-in-law, my wife's mother. She's from Hungary, and she grew up in communist Romania, and so when she came here, and actually, recently I get into constant conversation with her. She's like, why do I have to pay my electricity? I mean, we should just live for free with the free electricity. I'm like, you know how much money like companies spend to give you that electricity, like, and you want it for free. Would you like a slave as well, your own personal slave for free?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people too miss out on the fact that when you have this one entity that's going to own all the means of productions, when there's just one entity owning all the means of production, you lose out on that trade, and when there's no trade, you lose the profit and losses. And so when you don't have those indicate, like a lot of people will say, profits are evil, and therefore they need to be eliminated. Well, if you're going to eliminate profits, then you're also going to, by very nature, eliminate losses as well. And so without those two indicators there, those are indicators of success and failure.
Mm.
And so there's no way to know what the most valuable way to allocate these scarce resources is until you lose out on that, and everything's just going to plummet.
Yeah, it's interesting. I talked to a lot of I know a few people who lived in communist countries, and
Oh, wow.
I like to ask them how it was, and it seems to me I notice a trend, like the people who say that it was nice, that it was a good system, are usually the people that had a government job.
Hmm.
And yeah, and it's kind of interesting. And also the other thing is they say, it was good because it was a simple life.
Hmm.
People didn't want much, right? We were content with simplicity, right? We only had a little bit of stuff, but we all had the same stuff, so nobody wanted more. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I mean, even if they wanted more, they couldn't get it because it wasn't available, right? Because they're like, choking the private businesses, so, and probably like, shutting off their imports, right? So like, there's no choice. But of course, when people, they see how the West is, and like I always like to tell people, you always hear of people fleeing North Korea, right? You always hear people fleeing Cuba. Why don't you hear cases of stories fleeing South Korea into North Korea, or fleeing Florida into Cuba? You don't hear that.
No, never.
Right?
Obviously, we're doing something right here.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny how people, they lived in these situations, like let's say Soviet Russia, and then they say, it was good. We had a simple life. But then again, you had no choice. Like, even if you didn't like it, what was your choice? You couldn't.
That also begs asking, who's the arbiter of simple? I mean, I'd like to think that we have very simple lives here. Look at how great all this technological innovation has made our lives. It's very simple that I can open up a laptop and speak to you from miles away.
Right.
Isn't that a lot simpler than having to, in their quote simple world, you and I would have had to travel miles to have this conversation here?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, technology really has been a real savior for humanity, and brought people closer, and destroyed barriers. I mean, borders. National borders, and really united people. And I really think the especially the internet is going to play a large role in abolishing statism, or the statist mentality, because
I think that was the quote of Milton Friedman. He said that the internet is going to play a very powerful role in reducing the size of government.
Oh yeah. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I firmly believe that, because there's really no way to hate people when you can just type on, you can Google, or you can talk to people, like you said, on Skype. How are they? Do they really hate us? Like, and no, most people that live in Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan, they're just they're trying to get to work, right?
They just don't want their house bombed.
And they have to worry about getting a Hellfire missile in their backyard, And can you imagine, like, that, living in that kind of war zone? Is and all of that is state fabricated. Every single, it's so funny. People are afraid of anarchists, like, warlords would take over, or I debated one of my videos. Is I debated one of my high school friends who was a supporter of basically direct democracy. And one of his fears is that McDonald's, he gave this example. What if McDonald's got an army, and they got a tank, and they forced you to buy their chicken McNuggets? Isn't that funny? And I guess he was serious, but I'm like, do you really seriously think that would happen? And even if that does happen, that's basically what we have today. It's just called the government. Where they make products and they force us to.
I think the difference is that we apply different standards to different individuals. Like, I like to say to people that there's no such thing as government. There are only individuals. Some individuals just call themselves a state and acquire wealth through violent and dishonest means. And so I think once people are able to apply their principles consistently to the state and to everyone else, I think that once they oppose the state's monopoly on force and power, they would oppose it all across the board. So let's say Burger King or McDonald's does pick up guns to try to acquire wealth through, like, you're going to naturally like, just think, like, my friend James, he did his whole senior thesis last year about it. It's up on YouTube. It's really great for anyone listening. I'd recommend you check it out. And he was talking about how in a voluntary society, if a gang or some sort of entity goes out and tries to do this, like, let's say Domino's goes out and they start using their guns against all the people around them. Well, then you can get the utilities companies to just shut off their power. You can get the water company to shut off their water. And so you essentially force them to comply to society's peaceful demands. You put them out of power just like that. And so I think that once people are able to see the state in that manner, they'll be able to apply it consistently and see everyone in that manner.
Yeah, it's like I think that that reminds me of the false dilemma, which the black and white logical fallacy that Frederick Bastiat, is saying that if socialists say that if we object to the government doing something, then they think that we object to it being done at all. Right. So if we say the government shouldn't provide education, we think people should not be educated at all.
And that's why it's so difficult to get into discussions about the military or the police, because people will immediately assume that you are now against defense. When it's not that we're against defense. We're just against using violence against people to fund defense. How is it defense if you are initiating force against people?
Right. Well, you don't understand, Justin. It's national security, right? It's interesting. I read a book. What's it called? The Market for Liberty by Linda Morris Tannehill. An awesome book. I read it twice actually, and really awesome book. And I think it was written in the 70s. And basically talking about how would a voluntary society work? How might it work? And we really have no idea, of course. But this one possibility. How would private arbitration agencies work? Dispute resolution agencies? How would private security work? Right? How would what would be the incentives? Like if one country really, or not a country, I guess a group of people established a voluntary society, and they became extremely successful, and they attracted all these businesses that want to flee these heavily taxed areas, and they want to go there, and so that made it more and more wealthy. And how much attractive that would be for everyone to want to move there, and then how quickly it would grow, and the thing like that. So yeah, it's really fascinating when you think about these things. But the thing is, we don't know. But the idea, I think, I forget, or somebody like that said that our not knowing something, or that something might happen, is not justification to use force now, right? So we don't know how private defense would work, therefore we need to force people to pay for a military, right? Right? So it's like, so there is no justification for that, because because that's essentially like trying to predict the future, right? We don't know how it worked, therefore we have to steal people's money in order to do it, because we think we have the answers. I saw a great a cartoon. It's like, this is how socialism works, right? And so you see on the left, it's like the ladder. They're trying to climb over this wall, and the ladder's too big. So what they do is they cut the ladder in half, and then they try again. They try again to climb, right? Socialism, or even government in general, it doesn't add any wealth, right? You're just stealing from the productive, industrious portion of the people. Absolutely. That doesn't add wealth at all. It's like it's like lazy thinking. It's like, if we can't figure it out, the government must be able to. No. You're just justifying more violence and more theft. That doesn't solve anything. That worsens the situation, right? And
unfortunately, when it comes to socialists, they fail to they see the world in terms of finite, as if there's some finite amount of wealth, when in fact wealth is created. And so that's why they want to redistribute it, because they don't understand that you yourself as an individual can create wealth. You can create some sort of value, and that enriches your life and everyone else around you. Now, I know you just mentioned a book you read, and that made me want to ask you, who were some of your biggest influences when it comes to voluntarism?
Well, Jeff Berwick, I was listening to him a lot on Anarchy. I learned a lot from him, and Stefan Molyneux, big one. I started listening to him when I had my son in 2010, and and my wife just sent me a video of his on peaceful parenting. Sorry, on no spanking,
Mhm.
and so I started there, peaceful parenting, and then I just learned about everything else, voluntarism and economics, and various things. And so, yeah, he's just a treasure trove of knowledge. Um, and who else? Yeah, Peter Schiff I like a lot. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, as many people, Adam Kokesh, now a bunch of rappers, I'm finding. So yeah, there's just so many people out there. Once you realize how many people are really putting out content, and that's the other awesome thing about the internet is now news has been decentralized, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Before, you have the major news broadcasting stations, and that was the main news. I mean, I guess, people had pamphlets, they could circulate pamphlets, but, they really had, the government had a pretty strong stranglehold on the media outlets, right? And now with the internet, that's completely decentralized, right? Everybody can be their own voice on YouTube, and it's wonderful, and that's, and that's truly the free market. Only the people that put out the most attractive, intelligent, well thought out, hopefully, the people that get all the subscribers. I mean, you look at some of the, I guess, I guess still in the decentralized world, you still get the people following the socialist YouTube channels, right? But still, I mean, we all have a voice, right? And that's beautiful. It can only lead to a greater dissemination of information. So,
How much do you think that internet memes are going to revolutionize the world?
yeah. We were just talking about that. How I really think that internet memes. It's such a great, short and strong transmission of an idea, right?
Mhm.
And it can be so powerful.
It's like the
And
phrase, "A picture's worth 1,000 words."
yeah. It's I mean, it's like like a quote.
Mhm.
Somebody says a quote in a good, one sentence, and it can convey an idea very powerfully. Same thing with a meme. It can just show a quick contradiction and get people to think. So memes, I think, will definitely revolutionize the way people think. And I think there's no going back. It's like once people got to the point of saying that chain slavery is immoral,
Mhm.
that's it. There's no going back, right?
Absolutely.
You're not going to hear any politician coming out and say, go plantation owners, right? No, you're not going to hear that. It's not popular anymore with the population, with the masses. There's a one-way street to freedom, to voluntarism, right?
Mhm.
And all we're trying to do is push that along. Come on already, come on. We want to see this before we die, please.
Yeah.
That would be nice, right? Although I also saw another picture or a quote. It says, a wonderful world is where old men plant seeds of trees that they'll never, enjoy the shade of, right? And that's basically, I feel, what we're doing, right? Even
Yeah.
if we don't see a voluntary society,
We're
um,
planting the seeds right here today.
right? Yeah, we can still spread this information and help other people to rethink their paradigm and their indoctrination, and hopefully our children, our grandchildren will benefit from it, right? Because
Mhm.
it's like I like I remember Stefan saying, when your grandchildren sit down with you and they ask you, like, in the death throes of the United States empire, the imperialist empire, what did you do to help stop war, right? Or help stop oppression or injustice or drone strikes,
Mhm.
did you just go to work and obey the laws and pay your taxes and hope everyone else is gonna, somebody else is gonna do the dirty work, somebody else is gonna speak out, right? Make videos, write articles.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't want to say that.
That's sort of like the tweet I sent earlier where I posted a picture of my taxation is theft t-shirt.
Nice.
And I believe that I captioned it. I said, "Life isn't worth living unless you're trying to make a statement every single day."
So do you like are most of your shirts like volunteers type shirts and
Yeah,
anarcho-capitalist?
I mean, it all started. I started making shirts myself a year ago. I remember the
Oh,
first one I
nice,
made.
nice.
I started making shirts back when I was a conservative, and so the first one I made was like a Ted Cruz Rand Paul 2016 shirt, and
Wow.
and it actually came out really good, and I still have it at home. But I made a bunch of conservative shirts a year ago, and then once I converted to voluntarism, now I
Yeah.
just have a bunch of these volunteer shirts. I sell them on my site too, libertyhangout.org. And so I just try to, there's simple messages. Taxation is theft. And then I have other ones that say, like, don't tread on anyone, or I believe in a voluntary society. And they're just shirts. I just want to get people thinking, like, they're going to see that, and maybe the message will bode with them, and if it doesn't, at least it's going to stick in the back of their head. And now every time they're going to see me, they're going to immediately associate me with that message, and they're going to think of that. And that's something that I feel, especially my fellow college youths here, that's something they're not really doing enough of, is actually thinking and questioning.
Even though they're supposedly put into an environment where they are thinking and questioning, but most of the time it's like, I guess more socialist leaning, like thinking. So what kinds of responses have you gotten from your shirts? Like, have you really sparked up some conversations with it?
I haven't really had too many conversations yet. I mean, I get a lot of people looking. In fact, I did have one lady in the cafeteria once. She looked at my shirt. She's went, "Taxation is theft." Damn right it is.
Oh, really?
That was my favorite response there.
Yeah, it reminds me of that meme where you see these girls. It looks like at some kind of dance party, and they're holding their drinks, and they're just looking at you, and they're like, "This is what zombies look like when you bring up some truth." You know that? And so I figured that's the kind of looks you get. Like,
well, I have a funny story for you. Last week, I finally decided to wear my. I don't know if you saw the picture of it. My shirt, a vote for Bernie is a vote for bread lines.
no, I didn't see that.
Oh, so I have a shirt that says that, and it has it's red, and it has like a drawing of Bernie next to it. And so I wore that shirt, and so I think people from a distance, they probably saw Bernie and thought like, oh, hey, this guy's for Bernie. But then they get a little closer, they see that message there, and so I wore it about a week or two ago. And I remember I was eating breakfast. I saw this kid. He was sitting a few tables away from me. He was just giving me this really evil death stare. And he was just sitting there sipping on his water, giving me this death stare. I see him later at lunch, and he's wearing a Bernie 2016 pin.
Right. Yeah, I know a couple of Bernie supporters or Bernie fanatics.
I think that even though I think it's very, even though it is very disheartening to see so many people support someone like Bernie, I think just the fact, like you were saying before, how we have this decentralization of media power, I think that 2016 is a very big year in the fact that people are sick and tired of the game on both sides of the aisle. I mean, while it's on one hand very dangerous and debilitating that people are supporting a Trump or a Sanders, people want an outsider. They see the system is corrupt. They're sick and tired of what we have. So I think it's only a matter of time until all these socialists and all these neocons wake up and see the state for what it really is.
Yeah, it's funny when you say like people, they want a different option, right? They want an outsider, and then they say, that's why I support Bernie Sanders. That's why I support a socialist. And I think so. Are you saying that socialism was never tried in history? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
You know what the Nazis stands for, right? National Socialist. Did you know that?
Or the USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics.
Right. So
oh, that would never happen here.
Yeah, I know. It's like no, we're different. And actually, that reminds me of one of my favorite Larkin Rose videos, which is what's so bad about the Nazis? And it's a great question, right? Because like you ask somebody, what's so bad about the Nazis? And they're like, well, they killed a bunch of people. All right, well, we have, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. We got, the genocide of the Native Americans, right? We got not to mention
police kill 1,000 people every year.
All right, domestic local monopoly on violence. You got drone strikes. Okay, next, what's so bad about the Nazis? They had an evil flag. Well, I mean, our flag symbolizes chain slavery for centuries. Okay, what else you got? He was a dictator. Well, we had FDR. FDR was essentially a dictator. He Say again?
Lincoln.
Right, Lincoln too, yeah. But FDR, I mentioned FDR because
Mm-hmm.
he served like I think 4 terms, right? Completely
Oh yeah. Well, elected 4, served 3. He died. He died as soon as he got in the 4th time.
Right. And he issued by far the most executive orders of any president. Like,
Yeah.
was it like 2,500 or 3,000, something like that? And it averaged out to be like one every other day.
Wow.
He was busy. He was pretty busy at like meddling in the affairs and destroying private enterprise. He was pretty busy with that. And I think I interviewed Lawrence Reed from the president of the Foundation of Economic Education, and he wrote a lot about the Great Depression with this one book called Great Myths of the Great Depression, and and one he was talking about how I think in order to he wanted to make more profits for the farmers, right?
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to raise the prices, so therefore he's like, all right, so if they can lessen their supply, then they can raise their prices. All right, so what we should do in the middle of the Great Depression when there's like a third of people out of work, a lot of people starving, let's go and murder their pigs and dump out all their milk and destroy all their cheese and kill all of their cows, pretty healthy animals, and then they can sell what's left of it at a higher price and get more of a profit. Oh my God, what twisted logic. It was really amazing. It's like, oh, okay, so how are people going to afford that? And it's really amazing how people really think like that. They just have and I mean it's a lack of basic understanding of human action, economics, and supply and demand, and voluntary interactions, and
Yeah. Like you said right there, basic human action. Like right now, I'm taking a business and government course. I know we talked about this a bit in your when I appeared on your show, and yeah, that class it kind of it's just me in the wrong way. That's why I like to talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's just very interesting how everyone views business in this light, like, oh, they're going to be as if government agencies aren't going to be self-interested. Like, do they just think that if you give someone this title and call them the state, they're suddenly going to lose that human nature? That's suddenly the best interests of the people, when they're getting all their wealth through force, they have zero accountability, that they're somehow going to be less self-interested than someone who has to acquire wealth through honest means?
Yeah, it's really funny how people make this huge moral exception for politicians. Like they're public servants. They serve us, right? They do our bidding. They only do what we want. And it's really amazing.
Actually do. There's no example of it.
Yeah, and yeah. So you can make the case. Some people make the case. Yeah, politicians are evil, immoral, corrupt, and all that. But actually, I would go even further and say, even if a politician did get into power and did want to help the people, the only way that he can help people is by abolishing all laws, all taxes, all regulations. That's the only way he can help people. If he adds anything, doesn't matter how good his intentions are, doesn't matter how nice and kind-hearted and he kisses babies and all that, doesn't matter. He's still hurting people.
Yep, because he's still acquiring the wealth through force.
Yeah, still acquiring the wealth through force. And how can you because government is a one-size-fits-all system, right? So taxes for everyone, regulation, right, for everyone who's applied to it, right? It's across the board, laws, everyone, right? So and we're all diverse individuals. People have diverse businesses, and so I think they describe Keynesian economics as just people who think in the short term and only for special select groups, right? Whereas Austrian economics is more about long-term thinking and thinking about how it affects everybody. How a particular policy affects everybody, right? So that's what they don't realize. They don't realize the secondary, tertiary, all the cascade of effects of a particular legislation. So
correct. Now I know you're the founder of peacefulanarchism.com. You're also a contributor to a bunch of sites. You want to tell us a bit about how you came to found Peaceful Anarchism and what people can find on your website there?
Yeah, so I think I founded that. My wife created it for me in November of 2013, and yeah, I just wanted to have an outlet, for my writing.
Mhm.
And I didn't even have a YouTube channel at that time, so I was just writing articles. And I started writing first for the Turncoat Resource. And actually, when I first heard about that, and I first started writing, I'm like, what's a turncoat? Like I didn't even know what that was. And I did a little research, and actually, I believe the origin of the word is during the Revolutionary War, when people would be fighting for, I guess, one side, it didn't matter which side, and then they would go change to the other side. They would just
Turn their
turn
coats.
their coats around, right? And so they would be like, I guess, traitors, right? So revolutionaries or traitors or renegades, people like that. And I'm like, wow, that's an awesome word. Cool word. So yeah, so pretty cool. And then Living in Modern Times. It's really, really awesome one, run by Steve North. Really cool guy. But and actually, interestingly, let me tell you something about that. Living in Modern Times, he named that when he was not a voluntarist either.
Oh wow.
He named that just because he liked Charlie Chaplin, because Living in Modern Times is named after one of his films, Living in Modern Times. And then he realized only later that Charlie Chaplin is an anarchist as well. And he has a quote about saying how, I'm an anarchist. I don't think people should be caged. I think people should be free. But yeah, so I was writing articles, and then in last year in like May, when Michael Shanklin started the Voluntary Virtues Network, and he asked me to join. And I'm like, all right, sure, sounds cool. And that's when I started my YouTube channel, and ever since then I've been churning out like one video a week.
Yeah.
And nonstop, and a bunch of people, like a lot of people started contributing, but a lot of them have since fallen out, and I've remained one of the few left standing, along with a few others. I think a handful of others. But yeah, it's really awesome. I love doing this, and it really sparked a fire in me. And now I'm doing more interviews, which I love. I started doing that last year in the fall. And just like helping people like yourself, who start their own YouTube channels, their own Facebook pages, and when we help each other, we all can help spread the message that much better, right? The rising tide helps, raises all boats, right? So so it's not about like my likes and my subscribers,
Yeah, it's about what can we bring to the message.
Right. Don't yeah, so it's all about helping each other. So that's why I love finding YouTube channels, finding voluntarist rappers, finding writers, authors, anybody who's promoting the message of voluntarism and anarcho-capitalism. So I try to help them out as much as possible. So that's the kind of stuff.
That's some wonderful sounding stuff on there. And just backtracking a little bit to what we were talking about before with government and everything. Do you think that, because I was asked earlier by a friend, he was saying, oh, as an anarchist, I guess you're against government. And so I said to him, I was like, well, that's a misleading question. That government is just a word. Because people inherently believe that anarchism means against the state, when in essence it's let's break things down into action. And it's like, okay, what do the individuals that call themselves government, what are they doing?
Nice. Yeah.
They are initiating force again. It's not that I'm against this figure called government. If people want to voluntarily get together and call themselves a government, then I'm all for that. I am against the initiation of force against peaceful and consenting people. And so, what are your thoughts there about us as voluntarists really making an emphasis on action rather than words, which I think a lot of people are really hung up on?
Yeah. So what constitutes action, right? Like some people say, well, you're just writing, you're just doing videos and podcasting. What are you doing to help people? Helping real injustice. And I never did any protests. Like I never marched or did anything like that. And I mean, I know a lot of volunteers do, which is fine. But from my experience, it seems like when you do that, that's really a more dangerous way of activism, because you attract police, you attract riot in their riot gear, and it's just so easy for violence to break out in those situations. So I when I tell people, like, they ask me, what can I do? There's all these problems happening in the world: drone strikes, invasions. There's dictatorships. People slave labor, child, all this kind of stuff. What can I do to improve the world? I'm like, well, everything starts with the individual, right? It comes back to you always. If you want to make a difference in the world, lead your life in a certain way that you would like others to emulate, right? So be the change that you want to see in the world. That's what I would say. And everybody wants to appeal to a politician. Like a politician says, I'm going to pass a legislation that's going to reduce child labor. Well, I mean, that's assuming child labor is bad, right? Reduce child labor. And everyone's like, all right, I'm for that. He's got my vote. And it's so easy to do that because you have no idea what the repercussions of a legislation like that, even if it achieved that goal, like what it would do. And so people are like, they're really they're disconnected from the consequences of that action, right? And that's unfortunate. It's like of course there's a lot of things happening. There's the invasions, there's the drone strikes, there's all this all these murders and all this genocide happening all over the world, and there's a lot of things that are beyond my control, right? So I focus on education, spreading ideas, spreading messages, helping people to think in a new way. I think that's how we can really change the world, right? We can affect ideas, right? Ideas are what are the foundation of really any moral evolution, right? We have to evolve past the idea of statism, right? Past the idea that if we give a certain select group of sociopaths absolute power to rob, assault, and murder people, that somehow that's going to produce some kind of utopia, or that if we just enact the right amount of violence in society, that we will reach utopia. And we just have to. That's what I try to do. I try to tell people, no, you got to get past. That's like dinosaur caveman type mentality. That's not what intelligent and philosophical people do.
Do you think that people are afraid of self-ownership?
Afraid of self-ownership. I don't think people understand what that means. I think people have to be educated on that and what that means, and that if you claim that you own yourself and your actions and the fruits of your labor, then that would naturally render the state as a thief, right? That steals the fruits of your labor, right? So if people understand, that's actually a good point to start off with people. Just do you own yourself, right? Do you the words that you say, the words that you write, anything that you do, you own that, right? So then it must logically follow that anybody who tries to restrict your ownership or restrict your freedom or confiscate your wealth in any way that was justly acquired is immoral, right? And is illogical and is a thief. So it's a good place to start.
Now, what do you think is holding people back from understanding this it's very seemingly simple principle and concept? What do you think is really holding us back as a society from realizing this?
What's holding us back? Yeah, I mean, it's just a tribalist collective mentality, that we need somebody in charge. If only we had the perfect guy in charge, they would lead this country to salvation. And it's kind of funny that those words, because it's like we have to be led like sheep. We have to be led, right? Yeah. We can't do it ourselves. We have to be led. And besides that being a pretty ridiculous collectivist idea, it's also there's no individuality in there. Correct. There's no it doesn't recognize diverse, unique qualities of individuals at all. It's like we all have to be led and corralled.
Yeah, I think that all delves down into my theory. I'm surprised there's no quote by it yet. Maybe one day it'll be a famous quote by me, but I like to say that he who ignores the individual ignores the collective. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I saw a meme that compared a quote by Hitler to a quote by Hillary Clinton, right?
Yeah.
Which basically said, they both said the same thing, like, we need to stop thinking of the individual, and we need to think more of the collective. And and it's amazing how every single dictator, monarch, emperor, despot in history thinks that way. That's how they have to think. They have to think in the collective. They can't think of individuals because they can't do anything about individuals. All they do is like, it's like I like to describe government as people who think that say you say, can you fix my iPhone? So they bring a gun.
Yeah.
Or somebody's like, or somebody's like, or somebody that brings a knife to a chess match.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do you use violence to solve the intricate and very detailed and meticulous problems of a market economy? How do you use violence to solve those problems? You can't. You always hurt somebody, right?
And violence just breeds even more violence.
Yeah, there's no eloquence, as George Washington said, that, government is not eloquence, it's not brilliance, it's not intelligence, it's just violence and force.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think a lot of people, too, try to stress this imaginary, like, there's a common good. Well, that begs asking, what is a common good? How can you define this? And a lot of people will say, like, well, if the collective desires it, then that begs asking, well, what is a collective? Who's desiring this? And it eventually delves down into that it's majorities desiring it. It's not 100% of the people. And so if that's the case, then right there, if a majority of the people do desire this, then obviously there's some sort of market for it. So why do we need to employ violence?
Right.
When obviously the demand is present there. If the vast majority of people desire defense, there's a market for it. People always say, who will build the roads? Well, if the vast majority of people demand roads, there's a market for roads. They will be built.
That's a good point. Yeah, I didn't really approach it from that way. That if there's a majority, and if most people want it, why do you have to employ violent taxation?
Yeah,
why do you have to confiscate people's wealth? Why wouldn't they want to just give it to the government voluntarily?
I think Larkin Rose once said that every time a vote wins, that means that there were enough people that could have just done it themselves.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And democracy. It's tyranny of the majority, right? Mob rule.
Yeah.
And when has a mob ever acted intelligently, wisely, prudently, right? They don't. They act as one big blob of most of the time angry and emotional people.
Yeah.
Right? And that's basically what a democracy is. There's this one video I like. It's called Democracy Diner. How democracy would be in a food setting. And it's kind of funny. It's like these two guys go in and they're like, and the one guy never been there. He's like, you're gonna love this. It's great. And so you see the menu of all these different items, and all of them are crossed off except for two. Like, what? But actually, yeah. So he can't get any of them, and then so there's only like pizza or hamburger. He's like, all right, I want a pizza. The other guy's like, all right, I want a hamburger. And then the waiter comes around and is like, all right, we're going to vote now. He's like, what? What do you mean we're going to vote? Yeah, we're all going to vote to see what we all eat. And then they all vote, and they all eat the same thing. Like, in no other context would a democracy be considered rational or justifiable. And actually, that brings up an interesting point that anarchy really surrounds us in so many ways.
Absolutely.
We don't recognize that, in the food setting, in the professions that we choose, what time we choose to wake up.
Right here, I tell people all the time whenever I'm discussing it, is that every single conversation we have, this right here, this video chat right here, this is the essence of anarchy. We are engaging in this voluntarily because we find some sort of value in it. We're not being forced by a gun to have this video chat here.
Yeah, exactly. And the dating world is a wonderful illustration of anarchy.
Yep. Force is the difference between rape and love.
Yeah, it has its own checks and balances and competition. And if you're considered you abuse women, I'm sure the word will get around. Girls talk with their friends. So anarchy really surrounds us. I think it was Jeffrey Tucker. He said, right, anarchy, produces order, right? Everything beautiful results from anarchy, right?
Be uncivilized.
Right, from voluntary interactions. Like, If government forced us to work in a particular profession, or forced us to eat a particular thing, or forced us to wake up at a particular time, that would be considered horrible, immoral, but we consider it okay if it's, paying for, the military, paying for police, paying for, foreign aid that most of the time goes to the dictators, paying for a welfare state, right? Paying for all this bailouts, anything. We're like, that's the exception. It's good there. It's good.
If we get Bernie elected, I wouldn't be surprised if he's dictating what time we have to get up in the morning.
Right.
Anyway, we're about ready to wrap up. Anything else you'd like to add, Danilo?
Well, yeah, I just want to tell people that, it all comes back to the individual. I always stress that. Like, everybody's, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm a Green Party advocate, I'm a conservative, I'm a, constitutionalist. But if you really want to make a change in the world, get out of politics, leave politics, ignore it, pretend like it doesn't exist, right? And the way you really change the world is by raising, peaceful, loving, compassionate, empathetic, loving human beings, right? Raising your kids peacefully, peaceful parenting, taking your kids out of government school or don't send them there at all. Do homeschooling, do unschooling, start a business, contribute value, create wealth, right? When we start a business, when we interact with our fellow man like that voluntarily, we're always increasing the standard of living. We're always creating wealth, right? So just by virtue of voluntary interactions and by having a business, we are always raising the standard of living, right? That's how happiness increases all the time, right? That's how we have achieved, the magnificent technology that we enjoy today. That just 50 years ago or 100 years ago, life was so different, right? And it doesn't matter how much redistribution you did 100 years ago, we would never have the technology we have today. It's not about redistribution, right? It's about allowing the industrious, the productive sector to create, right? And people, guess what? People don't create when they have a gun to their head, all right? That's not how Mozart created his, beautiful sonatas, and Beethoven and Liszt and Tesla, and they don't create with guns. Guns don't stimulate creativity; they stifle it, right? So yeah, it's just about getting out of the way. That's it. Just get out of the way. Stop helping. Stop trying to help. That's it. Everyone's like, I just want to help the poor. No, stop helping. You're making it worse. Just stop doing it. So yeah, that's my message.
Those are the beautiful words of Danilo Cuellar, the founder of peacefulanarchism.com. Danilo, do you take donations on your website at all?
Yeah, I take PayPal and Bitcoin and Patreon. Yeah, I don't think I have the Patreon link on my website, though. It's on my. You can look at my videos, my Peaceful Anarchism YouTube channel. Every video, all the way at the bottom, has a Patreon link. If you want to support, please do, because I'm a one-man show, and I got 2 kids, 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I do this in my spare time. I love doing it, and I want to continue doing it. So please help me out.
Awesome. If you like Danilo's material, I'd highly recommend go give him some support. We need some help spreading the message. And Danilo, I'd like to thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been a real blast. For all the listeners, make sure you check out peacefulanarchism.com and give them a like on Facebook. Make sure to follow @PAnarchism on Twitter and subscribe to Peaceful Anarchism on YouTube. Also, be sure to give a like to the many pages that he contributes to, and that would be the Voluntary Virtues Network, Turncoat Resource, Living in Modern Times, Emancipated Human, Black Markets Are Beautiful, Liberate RVA, Agoristball, Gadsden Ball, the Seeds of Liberty podcast, Initiation of Peace, and the Conscious Resistance Network. And make sure you go head on over to our own website, libertyhangout.org, to check out some great liberty-minded material, and give a like on Facebook at Liberty Hangout, follow on Twitter at Liberty Hangout, and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here. Thank you guys so much for listening tonight. We'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot.